Playoff time. Find out how all the Point Park Falls sports teams did in their River States Conference tournaments.
Burning up. Later on in the show, we will be joined by sophomore guard Michelle Burns to talk about how the season has started for the women's basketball team.
Prime time win. Find out how the Pittsburgh Steelers picked up a crucial win on Thursday Night Football. It's time to come on down to the Pioneer Sideline.
Good evening and welcome to the Pioneer Sideline. I'm Mike Turk.
And I'm Sarah Maculin. The men's soccer team headed into River State's conference playoffs as the number 3 seed and welcomed in the Brescia Bearcats.
The team was guaranteed one home match, but due to scheduling conflicts with Whippeal Soccer, they couldn't play at Highmark Stadium. To discuss how the men did in the match, we bring in Taylor Spirito.
Now, Taylor, this game they lost 2-1 in the quarterfinals. Obviously not the outcome they wanted. What happened in this game?
So like you said, they did lose 2-1. They were tied for a majority of this game. They tied it in the 19th minute, but then Brescia ended up breaking it in the 65th minute. Like you said, it was a very devastating loss. You know, we were 3rd seed at home. They were 6th seed. You know, it just didn't go our way.
It's a game you want to win.
Absolutely.
Now, they couldn't, like I just said, they couldn't play at home,
Yeah.
technically. They played at the Montour Junction Sports Complex instead of Highmark. Do you think this had any factor at all playing here at this, I don't even know what the label, an arena, field, we'll call it field.
So we've been talking about it all season, how home field advantage truly is a thing, especially when friends and family come out to see you at home. So I think this did have a little bit of an impact, I should say, on their mentality going into it, especially if it's a field that they're not accustomed to. So the fact that they had that home field advantage guaranteed, but it wasn't even a real home field advantage, I think they let that get to them.
Now, this team, they have a lot of young players, and they lost a couple of seniors last year. So what's your outtake on the season this far? Like, was it a good season for them? Was it disappointing?
It was definitely a disappointing end. Like I said, they were 3rd seed coming into this, and they lost to 6th seed Brescia. But I don't think it was a disappointing season for them. They ended up 10-6-1, and like I said, they were 3rd seed. They had so many players that stepped up this season, so I think at this point they can only go up from here, and I'm really excited to see what they do next season.
Oh, thank you, Taylor. Now, the women's team clinched home field advantage for the playoffs this year, which meant the possibility of a championship getting played at Highmark Stadium.
But before that, they had to face IU East in a rematch of the game from October 25th, in which the Pioneers came out victorious 1-0. Were they able to do it again? We have Kiera Fry in studio to give you the answers.
Taylor, Kiera, I was at that game the other day. Transition. But it was a pretty good soccer game throughout, but Pioneers had such high expectations to win a championship this year, and they just fell short. What happened in that game to IU East?
I think that part of why PPU fell to IU East was that they were a little too overconfident going into this game because they had been doing so well this season. And when IU East was able to score very early in the game and get that lead going and then move it up to a 2-0 lead early in the second half, it was just Point Park felt like they couldn't catch up even though they tried to make another comeback. And IU East just got a lot of confidence from having that lead over a number 1 seed.
Now, you mentioned a little bit in your response that they may have been overconfident. Was that a factor in this game? Because we know how well they did all season. Were they overconfident? And was it a little bit of a revenge factor from IU East? Because there was a controversial play the last time they played each other.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think that both of those things played a huge role in this game because, like I said, Point Park was one of the top teams, and to go against the number 5 seed, they felt kind of secure in where they were, and they really had their eyes on the championship. But I think that once IU East got that lead, they just couldn't come back from it mentally. And I think that really gave IU East a lot of confidence, and that's why they were able to keep playing so strong throughout the whole game.
Now, briefly, I want to talk about the future of Point Park women's soccer. Tia Haru coming in as a freshman, 8 goals this season. She was absolutely phenomenal. Didn't even play the whole season, missed a couple games early on. But what can you say about the future of Point Park women's soccer? Where do you think this program's going to go after this season?
I think that they will only get better from here because, like you said, Tia Taru, she's a freshman and she's such a strong player. She was named to the River State's All-Conference first team, as well as I believe it was 3 other players, and most of them were juniors. So the junior class this year is very strong. They have a lot of really good players, and they'll be seniors next year. They'll be leaders, and I think that having strong players in those leadership positions next year will really help this team, and having such a good season this year will only give them the confidence, like a good starting point for next year.
Well, thanks, Kiera. Coming up next, find out how the Point Park volleyball team fared with their season on the line in the River States Conference Tournament.
And what can we expect from the Point Park men's basketball team this season with a new head coach? We'll have that and more next on the Pioneer Sideline. I'm so sorry, I messed up your name.
All right, we're ready.
Oh, no. You are right here.
Is the wind really necessary, guys? We need the wind. Okay.
You go today. It's awful. Yeah. That's awful.
Okay, I need someone to make me laugh.
Where's Wyatt? Wyatt's always late, duh.
I'm here. Jealous?
Get out of my way.
Stop.
Cool. Okay. And now we're smiling like there's a lot of noise going on. Let's keep the background noise.
3, 2, 1.
Here at the Pioneer Sideline,
We cover the real sports.
on another season, the Penguins are just getting started with the regular season this week.
Pioneer Sideline.
The show that starts your Friday mornings has returned with both familiar and new faces. Daybreak host Taylor Fife and Delaney Bomas are bringing you the latest updates in Pittsburgh and Point Park news. We also have a variety of talent on our free segments. Whether it be singing, dancing, or indeed egg smashing. Start your mornings with us at Daybreak on UView at UView Television.
Welcome back. The Point Park volleyball team had to travel to IU Kokomo this past weekend to play in the River States Conference Tournament.
The team had to battle against IU Southeast in the first round, a team they lost to at home after being up 2-0. To find out if the team struck revenge, we bring in Nicole Pampina. Nicole, oh geez, you and I were on that call against IU Southeast. It was a rough one to watch. It was a game Point Park women's volleyball should have won, but what happened this time around?
Should have won is an understatement. Let me start with that. I'm angry. We're going to just set the tone now. They should have won that game. They were a very beatable team. IU Southeast did not deserve to win. They didn't show anything spectacular like we saw with IU Kokomo. That's a good reference point where that is a dang near perfect team. But IU Southeast didn't really have anything special. They just rode off momentum and rode off Point Park's classic inability to finish games. And that kind of came in here too. They won that second set there, so it wasn't a sweep. But that third set, it was 24-20. They fought back 24-23, and then they didn't finish. It happened again in the fourth set. They were tied at 10, let them get all the way ahead 20-14. So things like that where they just let it slip just enough is when those teams come in, and that's whenever they make the final kill with Point Park.
Now you mentioned about their inability to finish games. This is the third year in a row that they've lost the first game in the River States Conference Tournament. Now I know, Mike, you've been there for all 3 of those games and seen how hard that is.
Yeah, no, my freshman year 4 years ago, they should not have won to the championship. They went to the championship to IU Kokomo. They lost, but they got the bid to nationals. And then the next 3 years they lost in the first round. CCU, Asbury, IU Southeast. Those are all first-round exits, Nicole. I mean, what can we look forward to in the future to get over this hump of the first round?
It's confidence. I swear to God. You mentioned with those teams, this year was odd because we had the top 3 and the bottom 3, and there were some cases where we let the bottom 3 in, and I mean IU East is IU East. We've been over that a million times. We ended up not getting that number 1 spot because we were swept at home with IU East, but. It literally is a confidence thing. They're a great team. We have some great players. Unfortunately, we're losing a lot of those great players next season, but the strength was there all around, but the consistency wasn't.
Who are you looking forward to step up next year? We're losing D'Angelo. We're losing Taylor, who's been the heart and soul of this team for so many years. Destiny Tucker, Jordan Dixon. Who are you looking forward to step up next season?
Haley English, if we still have her. She came in towards the end, and my God, she set a tone. She set a bar. It was nice to see her recover a little bit from that injury. Jaslyn Rosier, if she comes back in the middle, she started running a lot of slides towards the end, and that is a great strength to have, especially when you have 2 setters to work with, Minoski and Bianco. They switch off very well. That 6-2 started to work at the end. So things like that, working with those little cogs, but losing Taylor, losing Dixon, losing Gums, and D'Angelo right off the bat, that is a hit. And that worries me a little bit, but Beeler did a fantastic job in her first season, so they can only grow from here.
Nicole, thank you so much for that final report of volleyball of the season. We look forward to hearing you on the play-by-play broadcast next year. Now, we switch gears to a sport that's just getting started. The wait is finally over. After 11 months, we can finally say that the men's basketball team picked up a win last week.
Yes, Mike, finally, it's the first win for the team since December 7th, 2017. They were able to pick up that big win at home against Penn State Shenango last Tuesday. To discuss more about the team and their start of the new season, we welcome in Allison Schubert.
Allison, stop the presses. We're 2-1. We are above 500. You were at the game the other day. What did you see from the Point Park men's team?
I saw a lot of positive things. We're going to start off with that because that's a step up from last season. 4-22 last season. We're already 2-1. We're already halfway there to the wins that they had last season. So I would take that as a good sign. But I saw a lot of communication, which is something I thought was lacking last season. There's a lot of not being selfish, a lot of sharing the ball, and a lot less turnovers this season already. In that first game on November 6th, second technical game, but first game that we're covering this week, there were only 13 turnovers, and then on November 10th, there was only 10. And then they forced 24 the first game and 21 the second game. So that's a really good thing to see this early in the season, but it's that second semester that comes that kind of puts a damper on things, so I'm not getting my hopes too high just yet.
Now, because of their less than perfect record last season, a lot of people got playing time, and I feel like that's going to help them this season. Can you talk about some of the returners and some new transfers that they got that are going to make a mark this year?
I think the 2 biggest names that myself and new coach Joe Lewandowski has been talking about are Daniel King and Asim Plez, both returners. Both have been producing so far this season. Some bigger names that are still coming up, TJ Bates, who's a returner, Chance Wright, Justice Cuthbertson, Mark Shahady. So there's a lot of big names that are producing. Those are kind of the main ones right now that have been stepping up, but it's a deeper bench this year than last year, so I'm excited to see that.
Now, you played/worked under Coach Lewandowski up there at Butler. Now, what do you think he's going to bring to the table this year for this team? I mean, Boubon kind of had a little rough run, but the team was kind of shoved to him, unfortunately, and then he went back to his alma mater. What do you expect from Lewandowski this season?
I did both play and I was an assistant coach under him, so I personally loved him as a coach. He's a great person. He has a great family. He has a very strong background in the sport. He's very knowledgeable. I think he brings kind of a calmness to the team, but he also, he's going to be able to settle them down. And there's a lot of people who have been known to kind of get really heated during games, so I think that's going to help. And he also doesn't put up with as much as Boubon did, so I think that's going to help as well, especially coming into the second semester with grades and academics and stuff. He's definitely going to focus more on that. So, like I said, I'm excited to see where this team goes, but not getting my hopes too high just yet.
Well, that was great recap, Allison. Hopefully a little bit better record than last year, hopefully.
I hope.
So after the break, we'll discuss how the upcoming season looks for the Point Park women's basketball team.
And we'll have an exclusive interview with the current leading scorer for the team, Michelle Burns. All that and more next.
I know just the trick. Bippity, boppity, boop! Much better.
Guys, Pioneer Sideline, I'm outside of the Benedum Center right now. So in just a few moments, we're going to go inside the Benedum Center to talk to Trevor Dion Nicholas, who plays the genie in Disney's Aladdin. I'm Samir Nefsi giving you the theatrical scoop for the Berg. Hey guys, so I'm now inside the Benedum Center with Trevor Dion Nicholas, who plays the genie in Disney's Aladdin.
Welcome back. The women's basketball team season got off to a bit of a rough start in preseason tournament play, with the team losing its first 4 games.
Yeah, Mike, but the women's team was facing some tough opponents both in Michigan and Kentucky. And like we've said before, these early season tournaments don't necessarily serve as much of a season preview for the rest of the season.
That's right, Sarah. And as soon as the team returned home, that losing streak came to an end. The women picked up their first win of the season last Thursday at home against Ave Maria University by a final score of 72-65. 3 players finished the game in double digits, so it was a pretty successful showing overall.
Yeah, definitely. And the women now sit at 1-4, but have a long season ahead of them and haven't even gotten into conference play, which doesn't start until November 27th. However, there are still some non-conference games and a lot this team has to work on before that time comes. And one player who seems to be already doing that is Michelle Burns.
That's exactly right, Sarah. I mean, last season, as a freshman, Michelle Burns led the Pioneers in scoring, dropping 350 points in 27 games under head coach Tony Grenick.
Yeah, very impressive, and that wave of success has carried over into her sophomore season, as she leads the Pioneers in scoring so far this season and shows no signs of cooling down at any time soon. So we're now joined in studio by Michelle Burns. Thanks for coming, Michelle.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Now, we talked about you got off to a bit of a rocky start in those preseason tournaments, started off 0-4, but you played a lot of tough competition. How is that almost a good thing, playing those tough teams early on, so kind of to get your foot going and the momentum going?
Right. A lot of people don't know that a lot of these teams are ranked, so like there's great competition, game in, game out. But it's great for conference play because it's going to get us ready. I know the conference is definitely strong, but these teams have been just very competitive. So although like our record doesn't show it, we're going to be ready. I'm sure of that.
Last Thursday night, I was on the call for that game. You played a fantastic game. 28 points, 8 rebounds. You love that left side there. And they just would not put a player there to cut you off on that lane. But can you just talk a little bit about that game and how you guys were able to come out victorious?
Well, Coach started out we scouted a little bit. We watched some film. But Coach definitely focuses on ourselves before the other team. He wants us to focus what are we going to do rather than focus on what are they going to do. But we started off a little slow, so that was a little, I got a little worried in the beginning, but the second half, we really came out, and I was so proud of everyone. People were stepping up, and it was a great time.
Now, you mentioned people stepping up. You played as a freshman last year. You definitely did your part, but you also had some seniors to play with, some veterans to play with that are no longer here on the team. So how was the preparation process in practice making that transition from having all those seniors to a younger team?
Right, we lost a lot of great athletes, a lot of players, and like some really good friends of mine. So that was definitely tough, but we've had 2 new people come in, and I know we're going to have more people come in the second semester. And our chemistry off the court has really been growing, which has really affected our chemistry on the court. And we're going to get there. I know like our record isn't the best right now, but I think with all the bonding that we've been doing, it's really going to show once game time and conference play comes around.
Now, the first game of the year, you had 15 points. Second game, 15 again. Third game, 20 points. But then Shawnee State came around, 2 points. Okay. I heard you had a hip injury. How is that feeling right now? Is that anything we need to be worried about in the future?
I don't think so. Hopefully not. I think it was just something that I needed a few days of rest. I mean, I had a hip injury in high school. It healed up pretty quickly, so I'm hoping that it's pretty much good right now. So.
Now we mentioned your impressive freshman season, and now you're a sophomore, and the seniors are gone. So how much do you have to feel the pressure to step up in a leadership role to help coax some of these young players into the teamwork aspect?
Well, last year I felt like I did do my part for the most part, but there's always more to do. There's a lot of people actually stepping up this year, and I'm so proud of that. Carla Lucci's playing big time right now. Huge step up from her last year. So I know that I need to do more, but there's so many people that are just stepping up and helping the team really come together too.
Now, you came in last year from Hempfield High School, your first year playing collegiate basketball. What was something you wish you would have known your first season that maybe you know now here in your second year at Point Park?
I think that it was just everyone is in the collegiate sports are bigger, better, faster, stronger. So, I mean, I knew that going in, but once you're actually there and playing, it's a whole different atmosphere. So I think just having that 1 year under my belt and going into sophomore year right now, that's really helped me transition.
Now, you mentioned everyone's been preparing. You guys feel ready for once conference play starts. How does the conference look like sizing up to you guys this year? I know we had a tough loss last year in the playoffs. We'd like to kind of get some redemption on that and have a successful season.
Right, the conference play, it's gonna be tough. It always is. I know there's IU East. They're always gonna be good. Rio Grande, they're pretty good too. But we're right in there. I think we're ranked maybe like 5th preseason. But at the end of the day, the preseason doesn't mean anything. You just have to show up and play.
Well, thank you very much for joining us here today, Michelle.
Thank you.
And good luck for the rest of your season. And when we come back, find out how the Pittsburgh Steelers dominated on Thursday Night Football.
And hear about some big name trades happening in the sports world next. Don't go anywhere.
All right, we're ready.
Oh, no. You are right here.
Is the win really necessary, guys? We need the win. Okay.
You go today. You're awful. You. Awful.
Okay, I need someone to make me laugh.
Where's Wyatt? Wyatt's always late, duh.
I'm here. Jealous?
Get out of my way. Stop.
Cool. Okay. And now we're smiling like there's a lot of noise going on. A lot of noise.
3, 2, 1.
Here at the Pioneer Sideline,
we covered the real sports.
on another season, the Penguins are just getting started with the regular season this week.
Pioneer Sideline.
The show that starts your Friday mornings has returned with both familiar and new faces. Daybreak host Taylor Fife and Delaney Bomas are bringing you the latest updates in Pittsburgh and Point Park news. We also have a variety of talent on our free segments. Whether it be singing, dancing, or indeed egg smashing. Start your mornings with us at Daybreak on UView at UView Television.
Welcome back. The Pittsburgh Steelers hit primetime television again this past week with a big win against the Carolina Panthers on Thursday Night Football.
And the Penguins also picked up a win over the weekend when they faced off against the Arizona Coyotes at home. For the latest in regional sports, let's toss things over to Aaron Becker. Aaron.
Thanks, Mike and Sarah. It was a very exciting and dominant weekend for the Pittsburgh sports. The Steelers, Panthers, and Penguins all got wins this past weekend. It started on Thursday night as the Steelers took on the Carolina Panthers in prime time. The Panthers started out fast scoring on their opening drive, however, the rest of the night was owned by the Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger threw for 355 yards and had more touchdowns with 5 than incompletions with 3, and finished the game with a perfect passer rating. The Steelers defense even got a taste of the end zone as Vince Williams had a pick 6 to give the Steelers their first lead of the game. The final score was 52-21, the most points the Steelers have ever scored at Heinz Field and the most since 1984. The Steelers head to Jacksonville next to play the Jags on Sunday, the team that knocked them out of the playoffs last season. Next, the University of Pittsburgh then hosted Virginia Tech on Saturday. The game had a very similar turnout as the Panthers crushed the Hokies 52-22 on Senior Day. The Panthers' offense had 654 total offensive yards in the game, the most ever, led by their dynamic duo running back of Quadri Olson, who had 235 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Darren Hall, who had 186 yards and a touchdown. Kenny Pickett only threw the ball 11 times in the game and just once in the entire second half. Pitt will travel to Wake Forest Saturday for their first meeting since they joined the ACC in 2013 as they near closer to the ACC Coastal title. Finally, the Penguins ended their 5-game losing streak as they shut out the Arizona Coyotes 4-0. Casey DeSmith had a great game as he made 39 saves and 4 different Penguins, including Sidney Crosby, put it in the goal. The Penguins are now 7-5-3, and they play the Devils tonight in New Jersey as they sit at 5th place in the Metropolitan Division.
Now, Aaron, I want to talk about the Pitt Panthers because they're the story of the town. I mean, I know people haven't been going to Pitt games much, but now it seems like they're finally getting on a roll. And they even have a better chance at playing in a bowl game at the national championship than Penn State does, even though it's like 1%. So what do you expect from this Pitt team? Do they have a chance at that ACC title? I know they have to go up against Clemson. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I actually had the opportunity to be there on Saturday, and it was a crazy awesome game to be at. That running back duo of Hall and Olsen are incredible. I tell you what, I think they can make it pretty far if those 2 running backs can keep up what they're doing for that team. Like I said, Kenny Pickett only threw the ball 11 times, once in the second half, because the run game was that dominant. Now, talking Clemson, I don't know if they can beat them, but I think they can definitely make some waves in the ACC.
Well, thanks, Aaron. Now, with the NFL trade deadline come and gone, the free agency market is heating up with teams looking for some last-minute additions.
And in the NBA, one team has added a big name to their starting 5. For your latest sports news, let's send things over to Colton DeBias. Colton?
Thank you, Mike and Sarah. Well, the wait was finally over this week for wide receiver Dez Bryant as he signed a 1-year deal with the New Orleans Saints as they lead toward playoff contention in the NFC. The signing was short-lived, however, as Bryant would suffer a torn Achilles on the final play of practice on Thursday, resulting in him to miss the rest of the season without even playing a single snap. The Saints, however, did pick up a huge 54-14 win against Cincinnati to improve to 8-1 on the season. The Bengals fired defensive coordinator Tyrell Austin after the game as the Bengals dropped to a 5-4 record after starting the season off 4-0. And shockingly, the New England Patriots were defeated by the Tennessee Titans 34-10 on Sunday to claim their first loss against the Titans since 2002. And there was also another big trade in the NBA this week as Jimmy Butler was traded to the Philadelphia 76ers from the Minnesota Timberwolves in exchange for Robert Covington, Dario Saric, Jared Bayless, and a 2022 second-round pick. The 76ers also received Justin Patton in the deal. And nothing really changed in college football, as this past weekend, the 4 top teams, Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Michigan, won all their games with ease, including Clemson blowing out Boston College 27-7 to clinch a spot in the ACC championship game for the 4th year in a row.
Thanks, Colton. That's all we have time for this week on the Pioneer Sideline. Be sure to join us next week at the same Pioneer time,
the same Pioneer channel,
and the same Pioneer Sideline. That was absolutely perfect.
Boom.